February 13th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-mini 2000 tick chart. This is what the chart and price action did today. It looked like it was kind of a open, sold off briefly, then it rallied when it opened. Just kind of had a nice, very staircased rally that was pretty organized. This is how I saw the charts and how I drew it up. Now, you don't need to watch my entire video. Just go down to the description below and you'll see the timestamp of the time of day as well as where in the video I took my trades. Took a total of 5 trades today. I had 3 winners and 2 losers. So let's get into it. These yellow arrows are my measured moves that I use basically just to see where a profit target could be or where a potential turning point might occur. So let's get into it. So I don't trade the pre-market just because, well, I'm not awake and I just don't really like to trade the pre-market. I just like when the market opens and take the trades from there. But I do draw and see where my limit lines are. And so I did draw this trading range, kind of the lows in the overnight, excuse me, in the pre-market and the highs. So at the moment, when you see this, or when I saw this, I'm just thinking, okay, things are kind of moving in a trading range. It kind of went up, but it doesn't preclude the chance of this actually breaking out and rallying, which it kind of did today. So prices opened, and let's just kind of get into it now. So prices opened, it's chopping around. I draw this trading range right here because I found this. It's actually a little bit higher, but I found this 2 touches and I saw about 2 to 3 touches up here. So I just thought, okay, this might be something to work with. Kind of moves around. Looks like it's respecting it, but then it breaks out. It keeps going, chops around, and now I'm thinking, okay, there's a potential possible second entry short here because this is a new low. It's a first entry short, and then this might be a second entry short and potentially a fail breakout because it might be going back into the trading range. And it does complete a second entry short, but I decided I didn't want to take this trade just because even though this is a pretty decent signal bar, the entry, it looks like there's not that much room down to the EMA at this point. So I just kind of left that trade alone. But then I also see there's a potential second entry long now. But the second entry long is bouncing off the EMA. It's created the first entry here, but you can count this as a double top. So depending on how you counted it, it could be a first entry long. So the ambiguity of being a first entry long or a second entry long just kind of made me kind of stay away from it. On top of that, it's on top of this trading range at this point. I don't want to buy at the high, even though the EMA is supporting it. So it's just a sit on my hands and watch what happens. Turns out the trade would have worked, but it's also coming up to the top of this pre-market trading range. So I'm okay missing out on this trade, even though it would have worked. Prices continue chopping around, moves. So at this point, I just draw this big arrow as one potential measured move. So I might have 2 giant legs up, and then the other guy is right here, and I just kind of placed it where I thought an obvious swing was. But again, I'm not using it as an indication to take a trade, but just kind of a guideline of letting me know if the price action's played out or if I might take profits if I'm in a trade. So prices kind of chop around, dancing around the EMA, respecting it somewhat. At this point, I draw this trend line going up, trend channel, because I have 1 touch, 2 touch, and I have some pretty good touches up here. So I like this trend channel and also made the middle line visible just to see if it's a bullish bias or bearish bias. At the moment, it's kind of hitting both extremes. So I also saw that there's a potential smaller legs here for here, 1 measure move up, 1 second measure move up. And right now, prices seem like they're respecting that end of the second measured move. And it's kind of chopping around, consolidating up at the top. And I'm just kind of waiting, just seeing if there's a potential trade for me. And prices just keep moving. I do see a second entry long. I thought it was kind of aggressive though, because there's a consolidation up here. So you count this as a new high, first entry long, second entry long. The reason I didn't take it is because this is a pretty bad signal bar. Even though the EMA is right here, it broke and closed below. So to take a trade there, even though it's with trend, I didn't think it was a high probability trade. Turns out if you're looking for a quick scalp, it would have worked, but you don't know it at the time because this could have easily just come all the way down and touched down here. So you would have been stopped out. So I'm okay letting that trade go. Prices continue to move. Okay, so now I see my first potential trade. So I see that this trend line is being respected up here. I counted this as potentially a new low, and I saw a first entry short and a second entry short. So when I saw the second entry short, I saw that the EMA is above where this guy closed. So I thought there might be a potential trade here. So I actually entered this trade. It doesn't work out well for me, as you're going to see momentarily. So I took it at 41.22.25, which is right here. 41.22.25, which is kind of right here, because I wanted to take a short. Excuse me. It closed below. I'm confused with my previous trades, but it closed below the EMA. But I thought, okay, it could be a failed second entry short, meaning this trend line could keep going up. There's a different trade that I was thinking about, but this is the one that I was thinking about. So I took an entry here, one tick above. I actually placed it right at the top of this guy, and I'm thinking, okay, there's enough room to come up to here. If EMA holds, I would be good. But what happens is it comes right back down and stops me out. So immediately I lose out. But then I think, okay, well, if I count this as one big grouping of a new high, this could be a first entry long, and now I'm looking if there's an actual second entry long here, if I was just early on that trade. So I take a, excuse me, I wait for this candle to form to deliberately show me that it is a second entry long, and then I jump in on this candle at 41.22.50. It's about one tick above this guy, so it's 42. It's about where this dashed line is. So I'm trying for another attempt at a second entry long. Chops around. I do get my scalp, and then I get my runner. So not a very big runner, but enough to just get one loss, one win. So let me just continue going now. Technically, I'm still in the red because whenever you trade with a runner and you get stopped out, you're taking a whole position loss. But if you don't get the whole position off on a profitable trade and your runner gets stopped out break even, you're technically a little bit lower on your, you're going to be break even on your runner. And if you're taking, say, 2 contracts and you lose, then technically on a profitable trade with no runner, you only got 1 profitable trade. So I'm technically still in the red right now, even though I have 1 winner, 1 loser. So prices continue chopping left and right. Kind of moves up, breaks out of the trading range. It's still respecting this trend channel. It forms another trading range, which I established here. Keeps moving, chopping. I see a potential second entry long, but I thought it was hidden because you could count this as one big new high because it's double top. Starts to count as first entry long. And then technically you have a second entry long here, but I'm not as excited about it because even though it broke down and went back up, you can count this as a second entry long that's hidden. It's pretty close to the top of the trading range. So I wasn't too excited about taking that trade. Turns out it worked. It would have worked really well, but again, I don't know it at the time. I don't have enough experience to kind of get a good feel that, hey, this EMA is holding, things are strong, don't be afraid. And there was 2 key entry points, you could say. One of them is the EMA, and the second one is this bottom of this trend channel. But even though there's 2 key entry points, this isn't as obvious. I mean, if this red candle actually closed a little bit lower, let's say down here where my cursor is, then I would see 2 very clean second entries, 2 very clean moves, then I'd be more confident taking it because I'd also see a little bit more room up to the top of this trading range. But unfortunately, I didn't get that, so I just had to let this one go. Prices continue moving up, form yet another trading range, and now you're going to see this arrow here. This is the second part of the measured move. So when I drew this, I just said, okay, well, things like to move in pairs of 2. The market likes to move in pairs of 2. So I just copied this guy, moved it up to here, and just said, I wonder if there's going to be either a reversal or some kind of resistance or some kind of reaction up here. And so let's find out. So prices do touch it and come back down. So it looks like, okay, that measured move is kind of being respected in some way. Here's something interesting that's happening. The EMA is coming up. It's crushing price action. It's crushing the candles against the top of this measured move. But that doesn't mean there's a trade there. Even if you just are playing off of that, you still have to look for good second entries. You could have a second entry long here. I didn't take it because it's far from the EMA. Not that far, but I would rather have it touch, but it's also coming up against the top of this measured move. which may or may not have any effect. So I just let that trade go because I don't have personally enough information to make a good judgment call. It turns out if you played it, you would have had to sit through that chop and it would have worked for a scalp. I didn't, and I'm okay with that. And then prices keep moving up. Looks like it's respecting this top of this measured move somewhat. And I do see a second entry long here, first entry long, second entry long. When you try to take the second entry long, technically it formed right here, right as it closed above this candle. But the close is like pretty much even and it's below the EMA. So it didn't give me much confidence to try to take that trade. You could consider it a second entry long failure because once it touched this and came back down and closed below here, you can see a second entry long failure, but I was thinking it's running right up against the bottom of this trading range. So again, it's better just wait on this trade, or not wait on this trade. For me, it's just to pass on that trade. And then here I see a potentially pretty decent okay trade because what I do see is a potential fail breakout. It broke out below this trading range. It's consolidating. One thing that kind of threw me was it's making lower highs and lower lows. So it is kind of trending down. So it doesn't give me super confidence to take a trade. But as you'll see here, when it spikes up and touches, it's kind of created this, I created this trend channel going down. It's coming up against two resistances. So I thought, okay, well, either it's going to break through and try to break and make a new high because there's an overshoot here, it might overshoot up here, or it might come right back down. So it was just something interesting to watch. I didn't take the trade, but I saw something happening. And then, of course, it broke up. And on this very big candle, I went back and looked at it in hindsight. You can consider this the first entry long on one leg down, and the second leg down. But it's a little abstract. It's a little something that requires an advanced trader, which I don't consider myself as that advanced yet. It would just be something I saw, but not enough to in real time to make a good determination that that was a trade to take. As prices are going up, I see it's respecting this line. So I drew another trend channel going up because they're respecting it 3 times. You can consider it 4. 1, 2, 3. These are pretty close together though. And this one's pretty good confirmation. And it touches 2 times here and a 3rd time here. Because at the time before that candle formed, you only have this. So you think it's going to come bouncing potentially back down, but it breaks through. It makes a first entry short that I see. I count it as a first entry short. It comes down, it's touching the EMA, breaks through the EMA, wants to go back up. Now you could say this is a second entry short that's hidden because you could say there's first entry short, second entry short. I count it as a first entry short, comes all the way up. I still don't have a second entry short, but it's getting pretty far away from this structure now. So I would just be leery even if I saw a second entry short like right here, because even though this is a first entry short, first leg up and down, second leg, it could be starting a second leg down, but I felt it was a little far from that first price action here to consider any kind of trade there. As you can see, it chops around. If I did take a short, I would have likely got stopped out. EMA is still holding. Also, taking a short here is dangerous because it is counter trend. Because if you look at the overall market, even at this point in the day, it's still relatively early, only about 3 hours since the open, a little less than 3 hours. But you can see there's there's a bullish bias. It's going up. So to take any kind of counter trend short trade is, in my opinion, pretty risky. Especially, you'd have to have a really pristine, really perfect setup, and I didn't see that. So prices continue moving. Now it's getting very congested now. Look at the size of these candles. They're all side by side. They're not really breaking out in any one direction. They're just kind of chopping around and moving in a very slow and steady pace. So nothing that I see personally as a good potential trade. So just set on my hands. Prices continue moving up, comes down. So here, you had these measured moves, and I thought, okay, this is kind of a new low. I drew one arrow here, and potentially I originally put this guy. Sorry. I originally had this arrow, well, actually this guy over here, which I eventually put over there. I had it right here. And as prices moved around, it is still taking it off from the bottom of here, but I just moved it over here to make the chart a little bit more clear. Prices are moving down. I'm just wondering if it's going to create a second measured move. So I do see a second entry long here. So it's first entry long. If you were counting like on a shorter time frame, you could, depending on how your chart looked, count this as a first entry long, then a second entry long, and then a potential failure. But I counted it as what I saw, and I saw first entry long here, second entry long here. Now this trade in hindsight, I think might have been a possible trade to take just because it is respecting this measured move. It used to act as resistance, but now it's seeming to act as support. Also, it's coming down and it touched this trend channel going up 1, 2, 3, and potentially fourth time. Or you could count it as a third time, depending on how you counted it down here. On top of that, it's respecting the top side going 1, 2, there's an overshoot, 3, and potentially 4. So this is a valid trend line. So in hindsight, there was enough room to take it all the way up to the top. This might have been a potential trade to have taken, but I didn't take it. So prices continue moving. Now I see a lower high. Now I do take this trade. The reason being is I see a first entry long, second entry long, and here I wasn't sure, but then when I see a lower high, on top of this lower high, it closed above the EMA. I thought this is a worthwhile trade to take. So I get my order ready, and on the next candle, I take it at 41.41, which is right here. 41.41, which is right where the crosshairs is, about one tick above this guy, because the top of this guy is at 41.4075. So actually, I took it about one tick above, just kind of in this floating area. I get filled, and then I get my core profit out. I'm trailing my runner, and then my runner gets stopped out. The way I handle my runners is usually one tick below the previous candle. And sometimes I'll give it two ticks, not two ticks, but two candles back in case I see a lot of strong price action. I want to participate in a potential big rally. But in this case, I just kept it one tick below. So I got stopped out here at 41.4550, which is about right here, one tick below. Actually, it was below this guy. This guy made the same low, and then I finally got stopped out there. So then prices, okay, let me get this cleared away. Prices continue moving. So that was my third trade of the day. It's respecting the top of this trend channel, which is good. It means I'm playing off a valid channel. Comes back down. So as you saw when I drew this, and then I drew it from the bottom of here up, so made two measured moves. When I got up to here, I'm thinking, okay, it's either going to reverse or I have a small correction. The reason being is also at the top of this trend channel, so it kind of coincides. It's kind of like almost two clean key entry points, except if I were to take it, it would be like I'd have to count this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I didn't really like that because it's coming right into the EMA. It's counter trend because the trend and price action is showing a very bullish characteristic since the open. So to take a short there, I thought would have been risky. It's more just to know that a short possibility is coming and just to kind of watch price action because it's probably come back down to the lower part of this trend channel and bounce. So it comes down, it hits. Now I'm wondering if it's going to bounce or it's going to break through. Ends up breaking through. It also breaks into this part of the measured move again. And then when it comes down, I saw it at the time, but I wasn't confident in it. I saw a first entry long, then a second entry long. And when I saw this candle close, I thought this is very interesting because this doji candle could be like this one. But if I were to take an entry, there's plenty of room back up to the EMA. On top of that, I did have this trend channel going down. It was actually a little bit tighter, something closer to that at the time. And I was thinking it's a breakout. It might go back in, play around for a little bit, and come back down eventually. So if I had taken a long, it would have been like one tick above here. This candle itself isn't that big, so I wouldn't be risking much. But at the time, in real time, this happened very quickly because during the life of this candle, it's chopping around, right? And then the next candle forms and blasts off very quickly. So this is at 11:34 timestamp. This is also 11:34. So this is all within the same minute. It just closed and immediately after 2,000 trades went through, this one blasted up. So I thought, okay, well, I very likely might get another entry. But as soon as I saw this candle, I knew that the trade was gone. It had gone without me, and I didn't want to chase it, which is good because I don't want to chase after something that had already happened because then I'll just be getting FOMO and probably make mistakes. So prices do come back down. It breaks out a second time, chops, keeps price action keeps moving. Then it breaks out above this side now. So it had undershoot or overshoot, however you want to call it, and it broke out to the other side, another overshoot. So this is telling me to just sit on my hands. I draw, when I see this, I kind of draw this trading range. And I did see, after I drew it, I thought, okay, well, there's a first entry short, second entry short. but I wouldn't have taken this anyways because it closed pretty low. And on this particular candle, it makes me wonder, since it got stopped out twice already at this price level at 41.34.75, and it stopped exactly to the tick. It's hard for me to know if there's going to be a bounce because it did before. It came down, bounced up, came down, bounced up, broke through, then bounced up higher. So when it came down to here, it's hard for me to feel comfortable taking a trade here. But maybe with more experience, I'll realize what's going on because prices end up going down and touching the bottom of this trading range. On top of that, it breaks out and pulls right back in. So it's an interesting trade characteristic that I saw, but definitely something I was hesitant to try to take a trade on. So this is my fourth trade that I took. So I see this happening. I see a new low. I see a first entry short, second entry short. When I saw the second entry short form, it looked like it failed pretty much immediately. It came down, broke below this guy, made a second entry short, and then immediately came back up. And it closed above not only the top of this trading range, but outside of that measured move, which was found early on. So I thought, okay, well, this is a trade I'm willing to take a risk on. So I did put an order on the next candle, hoping to get filled. And I do. I got filled at 41.37.75, which is right here. It was actually the exact top of this candle. And I get filled, and now I'm thinking, okay, my stop loss is going to go one tick below this double bottom. So I had to kind of sit through a little bit of chop. And then I get stopped out. So granted, this is the high of this trading range, but at the time, you don't really know it's trading range. You just see this. So it's hard for me to know that this is a trading range and I was taking the high. I just saw a potential failed second entry short. So then I get stopped out right here. However, I do see a first entry short, excuse me, I do see a first entry long, second entry long. And I thought, okay, there's a hidden second entry long here. I think now it's ready to move up. So this is my first entry long, even though it's a double top, and then a second entry long here setting up. And I take a trade, and it becomes my fifth trade of the day. It's a 31.36.75, which is right here, 31.36.75. Excuse me, it's one tick above this guy because it closed at 31.36, 41.36.50. Took it one tick above just to give myself enough room to scalp out. I was able to scalp out pretty much the core. Then I trail the runner, being patient with it, giving enough time to run up, and I got a pretty nice 8-point runner all the way up to here. So at that point, I thought, okay, this is really late in the day now because I took this pretty late, of only less than an hour left. And so I got my profit and I got my runner. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to sit back now, don't take any more trades. And I just watched the price action go into pretty much the end of the day. Just draw some trend lines. I did see the second entry long, failed second entry short. This is actually a very nice setup because you have a new low, first entry short, second entry short, and then you also have first entry long. Now, and all that the next candle is going to tell me is if it's going to go up, continue going up bull, or it's going to break down, because this is a very good signal bar for second entry long. It's also a failure already if it continues up higher of the second entry short. Now, it turns out it would have worked. The problem being is this candle printed at 12:58 Pacific Standard Time. In about 2 minutes, the market's going to close. I don't want to be stuck in a trade and trying to manage it when volume and volatility is definitely going to drop after regular market hours. On top of that, if I don't figure out what I want to do by the time the market closes, the market's going to kick me out of my trade, win, lose, or draw. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want the market kind of dictating the outcome for me that way. I want to be able to have more control. So if only this setup had happened much earlier in the day, and this is a setup I definitely would have taken because it is respecting the EMA. Unfortunately, it printed and set up 2 minutes before the end of the day, end of the regular trading hours, so I could not take that trade. So that's how I saw the markets today, and that's how I saw the charts today. So it was 5 trades, 3 wins, 2 losses. So hopefully that was helpful.